the amount of time to stop the operation through negotiations is dwindling every day. And so the Trump administration maintains that the war can end as soon as Hamas releases the hostages.
Welcome to Reporter's Notebook. We talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle. I'm joined today by defense reporter Mike Brest. And Mike, we've seen more action by the Trump administration against alleged cartels, alleged drug traffickers. What's happened? What's the latest?
So President Trump announced earlier this week the second and then the third U.S. strikes on vessels that he said were from Venezuela heading to the United States carrying drugs that they were intending to smuggle. And so we know from the first time this happened a couple weeks ago, the president said 11 people were killed. He said in the second strike 3 people were killed, and then he did not provide any details about the third strike. But so all of these 3 incidents are now raising significant questions among military legal experts as to whether or not these are legal strikes under international law. And so the big question that they're sort of trying to figure out and understand is the legal authorities DOD is using to carry out these strikes, because for the last several decades, these types of drug smuggling ships have been interdicted by the Coast Guard, who would board the ship, arrest the people on board, bring them back to the United States, where they would face trial, due process, and if convicted, then a sentence, obviously. And so in these cases, these individuals are not given due process. They're killed on the spot, obviously, in these types of operations. And so it raises questions as these are still civilians, but they're being sort of attacked as if they are military combatants in a war. And so it raises questions without Congress declaring war, which Congress has the power to do, the military's authority to carry out these strikes. Now, we've heard from the president as well as from Secretary of War Pete Hegseth that these are just getting started. And so it really does raise legal questions, and it's unclear exactly if the Senate or the House will take up hearings or ask for additional briefings on these subjects, given that they have oversight over declaring war.
Israel started its latest offensive into Gaza. What's the status there?
So this specific operation is into Gaza City, which is one of the most densely populated areas still in Gaza. It's still not an area that Israel has controlled, but it's an area that they've operated in previously at points during the past almost 2 years of war. And so when Prime Minister Netanyahu announced that this offensive would take place, we heard global pushback given concerns for Palestinian civilians who have taken refuge in Gaza City. But at the same time, we heard even consternation from Israeli military officials about the wear and tear on Israeli troops over now almost 2 years of continued military operations, not just in Gaza, but all over the Middle East. And so there had also been one theory, which was that Prime Minister Netanyahu announced this impending operation as a way to apply additional pressure on Hamas. Now that the operation into Gaza City has started, we even heard Secretary of State Marco Rubio say that the amount of time to stop the operation through negotiations is dwindling every day. And so the Trump administration maintains that the war can end as soon as Hamas releases the hostages, and they are willing, unlike a lot of other foreign governments, to sit back and let Israel carry out its operation in Gaza City.
So President Trump has also expressed a certain degree of frustration with Russia. It doesn't seem like there has been much progress toward a ceasefire on that front with Ukraine.
So President Trump met with Vladimir Putin in Alaska about a month ago, and to this point, there's been little movement on any potential ceasefire or even lasting peace between Russia and Ukraine. And so President Trump has said very publicly now that he is on the verge of agreeing to additional sanctions on Russia, but is not going to do it unless all NATO countries agree to stop purchasing Russian oil. And the problem with that is, while nearly all NATO allies would agree to that, there are 2 who would say that they are not they're not interested in doing that. They have ties with Russia, and so there are a couple allies on the fringes within the NATO alliance who aren't necessarily in lockstep with the president or the majority of the allies. And so that has held up, according to the president, his willingness to apply additional sanctions onto Russia. And so time will tell exactly what President Trump's next steps are, but it's pretty clear at this point that the war isn't stopping. His efforts have not yet yielded the progress he would have liked to see by now, and it's unclear exactly how he intends to get there from this point.
Thank you, Mike. You can read Mike and the rest of our national security team's coverage at washingtonexaminer.com.